Welcome to the Weather Insights Tropical Briefing. I'm meteorologist Scott Pitney along with meteorologist Jeff Lindner. We are recording this on Sunday, October 12th, 2025. And earlier this week, we were tracking Tropical Storm Jerry. Jerry's intensity forecast at one time showed it becoming a hurricane, but it did never made it to hurricane status. And now Jerry is off the map. So we turn our eyes to disturbance number one in the southern Atlantic basin there with a 50% chance of development over the next 7 days, a 40% chance of development over the next 48 hours. And disturbance number one on the infrared, you can see it. You can also see what's left of Jerry up there in the central part of the Atlantic. But there's disturbance one is like a lot of waves that we've seen, Jeff, pretty disorganized at first, but expected to move into a somewhat more favorable environment for development later on this week.
Yeah, it's getting late. This is the what we call the Cape Verde season. Is these islands here named Cape Verde or Cabo Verde Islands here, and usually the tropical systems that we see this time of year, tropical waves tend to start getting weaker, and so the meat of this season down here in the deep tropics tends to be over as you get into late September and early October. So mid-October, which is where we're heading, is getting late. You can see the westerlies are a little bit of shear here ahead of this wave. So it may not be, again, great conditions. Jerry never really got its act together. It was a sheared system. As a matter of fact, it looks like the storm's here, but the actual elongated trough or center is to the north of it up here. And so we continue to get this shearing. And then we have this storm system along the U.S. East Coast. There was some question if this would become any sort of named system, but this has fronts associated with it, and so this is a what we call a mid latitude system, and you can see it's spreading all the showers and thunderstorms up the East Coast. But the interesting part about this is the strong easterly winds that are piling the water. So we have really big coastal flood issues along the U.S. East Coast from the Jersey coast down to the Delmarva area, and then even down to the east coast of Florida yesterday. Some really big coastal flood issues around Daytona and Cape Canaveral up towards Jacksonville. And some of this is we're even seeing here on the Texas coast is these big high astronomical tides this time of year with the harvest moon and the lunar tide cycles. You're getting a really big tide cycle right now. And so these easterly winds are pushing that water up along the coast. And so it doesn't always take a tropical system to produce anything. We always like to look ahead at the ensembles, and so this is that 997L out here, and the European is a little bit more aggressive with it than the Google AI, the Deep AI, and so we'll see if it does anything. But we're starting to get to that time of year where we transition back over here towards the Western Caribbean, and we may you see there's a little bit of a signal here as we get towards next weekend. Interestingly enough, both of these guidance are kind of producing something here in the Eastern
Yeah.
Caribbean.
Mhm.
Not totally unheard of, so we'll kind of keep an eye on this. But again, the hot spot really this entire season has been the East Pacific off the
Mhm.
coast of Mexico. I think we just got our P storm out there with Priscilla moving up into the southwest now, and yet again a pretty strong signal here. And so we'll have to keep an eye on this. This is the time of year here in the southern plains in Texas where these storms can get caught up in troughs or fronts and curve back and their moisture can come this way. And so, I'm not saying that right now. We have this big kind of high sitting right here over Mexico and Texas, and that's pushing everything to the west. But hopefully for us, because we continue to degrade pretty
Mhm.
quickly into drought after a really beneficially wet summer for a lot of areas, and even out in central Texas, of course, with the floods, but also just replenishing the lake levels out there. We've transitioned very quickly back in September and October into drought across a large portion of the state, and even here locally, with a lot of what we call abnormally dry conditions, and then moderate drought starting to creep in, and it gets much worse as you get west of the Brazos River. We're talking severe drought again out here along the I-35 corridor, and still this area here around San Antonio, which has been in extreme to exceptional drought for a long time now. And one of the places that just as wet as the summer was, the Nueces River Basin that kind of is the water supply down here for the Corpus Christi area, just really completely missed out on a lot of the rain this summer. And so they're still in really bad what we call hydrologic drought, and that's really low lake levels, really low river, if not dry river levels. down in this area. And some of these water supply reservoirs that feed Corpus Christi are getting extremely low. We're talking 20-25% of capacity. And so
Mm,
we desperately need rain again in this state to kind of beat back on the kind of developing drought situation. Not only do we have the drought situation, but we're getting quickly into a fire weather situation. So, in your summertime and it's hot, but you have those high humidity values, and generally speaking, we have calm winds in the summertime. That kind of keeps the fire weather to kind of a minimum. But as we move into the fall months and we start getting these cool fronts coming through, like we had on Friday, and this really dry air mass that came in, and a little bit of a gusty northeast wind, that really starts to ramp up that fire weather threat. And so you can see for a large portion, especially East Texas, we're anywhere from moderate to high values for both today and again on Monday. And until we can get some rain to kind of push back on the vegetation, and it's really the grasses at this point, the fine we call the fine fuels, the grasses, they're the ones that are suffering the most right now. So it's more of a grass fire situation than a quote forest fire situation where you get your larger brush and trees involved. But we're getting to that point where it's getting dry, and unfortunately, this is the rainfall forecast out through next Sunday. So the next seven
mm,
days, and high pressure just sitting right here on top of Texas and northeast Mexico. And you can kind of see the rain around that off to
mm.
the east. And even these values here in the gray, we're talking less than a tenth of an inch. So virtually no rain for the next 5 to 7 days. Maybe as we get into late next weekend with a little bit of a front coming in, there's some potential there. The GFS is the more aggressive model on that one. That's showing some rain potential. But notice West Texas here and New
Yeah.
Mexico, all this rain. That is that influence coming in off of the Eastern Pacific, the tropical systems. And so where you typically have dry, you have wet, and where you typically have a little bit more moisture this time of year. I mean, October is our second wettest month in this part of the state behind May. So the fact that we have got very little rain, our deficits are growing very quickly. And so the other thing with October is you don't tend to notice it as much because the temperatures cool a little bit. But
Mm.
this October so far has been really, really warm for us. We continue to exceed 90 for afternoon highs almost every day as we move into mid-October. So, a couple things. One, we'll continue to look for that rain in the long term, and also the first really decent front. And maybe as we get towards the 20th, for some hope out there. But even then, it looks like the push of cold goes more to our east. So,
Yeah. I
not a
saw
lot of
some of
good news
those.
on the drought stuff.
Yeah, saw some of those, especially the European showing a trough in here around the 21st or something like that. But don't have much faith in that. No consistency with ensembles or anything like that. But at this point, we're all looking for hope, right? Hope and cool down and hope for rain. So hopefully we'll get something. But last year again, we just didn't really get our first real front till November, and it almost looks like a repeat of last year right now. So. For the latest updates, keep it right here on the Weather Insights YouTube channel, and also check out our Weather Insights website. Check out Jeff's blog and the rest of the information. We've got some very good weather information on the website as well. For Weather Insights, I'm meteorologist Scott Pitney. Thank you very much, Jeff Lindner. Until next time, have a good one.